Assalamu alaikum. Ah, okay. Here it is. The finale, the end, the farewell, the goodbye, I guess the explanation. It's not that I've lied on the channel. I never did. I was always honest. But it was never really me. It wasn't the real me. It wasn't the me who was interested in whatever I was interested in whenever I was making those videos. The videos and the content and the concepts within, those usually weren't what I was interested in, especially not later on. I just felt like I needed to make them, but now looking back at them, I can't even imagine having the urge ever again. What a life, where my priorities were so out of whack and they were so out of sync with reality and what mattered, and thinking that what I was talking about mattered, even if briefly, even if fleetingly. It was so not me. It wasn't who I was, and especially now who I am. It's jeez. I don't know what words I'm going to say in this video. I don't know what words are going to come out of my mouth. I don't know how I'm going to express myself, what this is going to end up looking like. I'm just going with the flow. I'm just letting it happen. I'm just letting me explain myself. Improvised and all, and honest. And I'll be fully honest, I never lied, but I wasn't that guy. I wasn't the guy who was interested in all this stuff. You know, and people get interested in philosophy. I mean, I get it. There is no philosophy better, more logical, more beautiful than Islam. More complete and comprehensive. But that's the thing. Islam is the answer. Islam is that comprehensive philosophy. That religion which explains everything. Without Allah, there is nothing. There is no meaning and no purpose and no point to anything. No point to anything I did. Whenever I would record some video, whether I was 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever age I was, even when I was a teenager, whatever I did, whenever I wrote some essay or I did something, it was because I thought that's what I was destined to be. I had to be that intellectual. Initially a right-wing intellectual, then a left-wing intellectual, then a bunch of weird hybrids, and then a leftist, and then I just... But now I realize how pointless that all was. But the reason I still did it is because I felt like there was some purpose, there was some meaning in the universe, you know? Something that could justify what I did. Something that would make sense. And for the entirety of it, almost the entirety of it, though, minus a few years ago, you know, before I converted, I was an atheist. I was a non-religious atheist, and I was a materialist, and yeah, and I just believed in, you know, just matter is the reason, you know, physicality is the reason. Everything could just be explained by, you know, science or whatever. And yes, it can, but there is no science without Allah. There is no explanation without Allah. There is no acceptance of what we see and of truth external to us, except through recognizing Allah. Only through recognizing Him does it make sense. Does anything exist? And I was so foolish for so long. I was so blinded by, this is what I've got to do, and I've got to be this guy, and I've got to write a certain number of essays and a certain number of books, and I've got to make a bunch of YouTube videos to an audience who I hated. Because I just wanted to be that intellectual guy. I mean, no leftists were able to understand the philosophy of fascism, so I had to be the one. I thought to myself, well, if I was being called a fascist by a bunch of screeching leftists who hated me for my takes, the horrible and disgusting and untrue stuff I said on Twitter, and the stuff I was doing, and just how the comments I was making, and the things I was saying on Curious Cat, and the things the social media that was messing me up. And it was my fault that they had some rights to hate me there, I won't deny. They took it too far, but, I mean, I do deserve at least some of that, I'll be honest. But I felt like, okay, I could just make videos on fascism explaining it. And I did, and These videos are decent. Like, they get the job done, and they're better than, like, over 99% of the other stuff on what people think fascism is. But the point is, as someone who never accepted fascism or actual idealism, I never actually came to that philosophy. It didn't make sense to me. To me, materialism made more sense, and, well, compared to that specific form of idealism, it still does. I mean, Giovanni Gentili was a smart guy, and I was wrong for, initially dismissing him and all that, but the mind just doesn't work when it's everyone's mind. I mean, this is almost polytheism. It might as well be no better than Hinduism or Sikhism. This pantheism, which is not theism at all. It's not even remotely theistic. This, pantheism or monism, as it's better called, right? Monism, this holism, this, there's another word for it, organicism, I guess, what fascism is, what Hinduism and Sikhism are. This idea that we're all one, and everyone is the same, and we're all part of it, and God is inseparable from us. What they think is God anyway. Who even knows what these people think? They don't themselves. And I know so because they can never articulate it the same way. You ask 1,000 of these people the same question, they'll always answer it differently. But anyway, the point is, I wanted to at least understand fascism. And I did. Because I had an intellectual curiosity for something that I didn't believe in. I didn't believe in it, ever, but I just wanted to know why it was believed in. I wanted to read what Giovanni Gentili wrote, and why he believed what he did, and sort of paint a picture, if you will. Piece together the puzzle, right? Make it make sense. That makes me better than all these people who want to misrepresent an ideology, who aren't even truly against an ideology because they don't even know what that ideology even is. What does it mean to be anti-fascism if you don't know what the philosophy of fascism is? Exactly. And it's the same with everything, really. You have to understand something to be able to explain why it's wrong, and to even be against it and to feel that you should be against it to begin with. This is something so many people mess up on. They just don't understand. But I was doing things, and I was saying things, and I was thinking that this was what life was about, being this intellectual. Oh, I can make better takes than other people. Is that what life is going to be about? Like, even at the time, what did I think happened when I died? Nothing? I guess that's how pointless you view life to be. Just a short, miserable, awful thing that is governed entirely by matter, with no hereafter, no Jannah, no Jahannam. No one is properly rewarded nor punished for the things they've done. In other words, a reality without guidance, a reality without consciousness. Something that's so miserable and sad, and yet so few question it. So few question whether this is true. They just accept the materialist framework because they mistake that as what the professionals believe. The professionals do not believe that. The professionals are Muslims. The professionals are those who've looked at philosophy, who've looked at ontology, who've looked at the science, and they know it. They know that Allah is the explanation. It's not matter, nor human minds, nor anyone else's minds that produce and sustain reality. It's Allah, the consciousness of all consciousnesses, the creator of everything. He was never created, and he will never stop existing. There was never any God before him, or after him, or that exists now. There has only ever been one God that's ever existed. The God. And that's the only explanation, that there's just one mind and one truth, and one objective reality, and one rational reality. And nothing else could ever explain it. The Quran says that there could have never ever been any other gods. It never would have made any sense, no matter how far back we go. There couldn't have been. Because then there'd be multiple truths. But there are not multiple truths. There's just one truth. Just as there's one Lord. All the different gods, these deities, would be fighting one another, trying to take the throne, trying to overthrow one another, because they don't have the same idea of what's good, of what's righteous. In other words, a reality where morality is entirely an opinion and not a fact, entirely irrelevant. Not just morality, but everything. Metaphysics, why anything exists, how anything could ever exist. what the destiny of humanity is, what the purpose of life is. Because all these different deities, by inherent nature of being different, contrastive, would all fight for that, for their own interpretation, their own subjective nonsense. But no such thing could ever exist, because there's just one reality. There's just one loving, beautiful, warm, elegant truth. Allah, and His message, and His destiny for everyone, Islam. That's why there's only one religion which Allah Almighty accepts, His own doctrine, the eternal truth, the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth. There could never have been multiple gods, because then there's no order, there's no purpose, there's no truth, there's no love. Nothing would make any sense. And who would we follow? Would we worship one God and then discard all the rest and say that they're all fools? How would we pick a God? Because there has to be one governed truth, eternal and unchanging. And that's Allah. Whether you'll recognize it or not, and I do hope you recognize it. We should all recognize it. It is Allah and His eternal doctrine. That's the truth. That there's only one God. God. There can only ever be one God, and there always will be, because it will never change. Reality is not dependent upon what we believe, what we perceive. We do not construct reality with our imaginations. Not slightly. Nor could particles ever explain something. Particles which are without consciousness, which are without meaning, without logic, without reason, unless they are given reason, unless they are thought of, unless they are thought up, created by Allah, unless they have a meaning, something to be attributed to, that there is a blessing bestowed upon them, that they have a function, that they have a operation. Because then there's no reason, there's no logic in that. It's all just consciousness, consciousless. Consciousless, it's just a void that is thoughtless, no mind attached to it. But there has to be a mind that sees all and perceives all. And that's why Islam is the only real form of idealism. It should actually be called actual idealism, because it's actual. Allah is actual. An undisputable fact. Indisputable, actually, I think that's better grammar. I think that's the terminology. Anyway, the point is, that's the point. And nothing else matters, because all the universe and all the universes and everything in the entire multiverse, every single galaxy and solar system and Milky Way and everything and all the stars and the planets and everything which Allah created and sustains and orders and causes to function and causes to move the way it does. All this is infinitely times smaller than Allah. Infinitely times less important. Allah is not huge in comparison. He is infinite in comparison. He is infinite compared to everything. He is absolute in absoluteness. He is perfection. He is never wrong about a single thing. His judgment is always perfect. He can never make a mistake, and He never has, and He never will, and He knows this. He knows everything in the past, which is eternal. You go to the past, and it's never ending. And the future, which is also never ending. Existence never beginning, nor ceasing. He knows every single thing. Every secret that we don't know. And what He knows is so vast compared to us that it's literally infinite. We don't even know 0.00000000001% of what He knows, because that's still a number. He knows infinitely more than us. We are nothing compared to Him. And you know what? It's like, I didn't realize this is what life was about. None of these other things. This is all just illusion. Illusion which Allah presents us the option of indulging, whether we choose to accept it or not. He gives us the ability, He gives us the choice, He gives us the free will. You know, will you be righteous? Will you walk down the righteous path? Will you be a good person? Will I be a good man? Am I a good man? Have I succeeded as a person? Have I done what's right? I try my best, I always do, but maybe I don't enough. Maybe I need to put in more effort. But I'm thinking outside of my mind. I'm thinking outside of what I want and what instead what I need, instead what needs to be done. Because the real happy ending of the universe is, I mean, as time is, the way it's ordered is that it's already happened. Everything's predetermined. Everything has already happened. The true happy ending is that Allah exists. And he does. Without the tiniest doubt, he exists. So we already have the happy ending. But will each individual human being, each consciousness, receive its own individualized happy ending? I mean, it doesn't appear so, no. Because Allah gave you the simplest order, the simplest task ever to do, to go to Jannah for eternity, the most beautiful paradise, the most beautiful life, where even the lowest level of it is so much happier than even the happiest life ever lived on earth. And all you had to do to accept, to have this forever, never-ending bliss and happiness, is to just admit the obvious truth, glaringly obvious, with no other explanation ever available. That there is no God except Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace and Allah's blessings be upon the greatest man to ever live, is the final messenger of Allah, the seal of the prophets. It hurt him too, He didn't believe in Islam for the first 40 years of his life. He never heard of it because it was only brought about him by Jibril. Before he met the angel, he didn't know. He believed in Allah, sure, but he didn't know what Allah believed. He didn't know what Allah's whole creed was, whole doctrine, whole philosophy for life, for living, and for treating others nicely and kindly, and making sense of a reality that, without Allah, it just seems to be mocked primarily, or entirely, really entirely, actually, by nonsense. When he received the first revelation, the first divine revelation, he thought he couldn't handle it. And psychologically, it caused him to break down. He knew he was going to be prosecuted by the Quraysh. He knew he was going to be driven out of Mecca. And this was one of these prophecies, actually. This was one of his predictions that turned out to be correct, like all his predictions. He was indeed driven out, forced to leave the city, because he dared speak of the Lord. He dared to praise Allah, and not believe in some weird fairy tale nonsense that the Quraysh believed in. Their greasy polytheistic nonsense. Because he saw evidence, because he was presented with it. And so was the Oman at the time, and today and always. The early Muslims, the Meccans, who did see what he was preaching, what he was saying, and recognized he was being 100% honest. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and Allah's blessings be upon him, never told even the tiniest lie, not even a single time in his entire life. And because of all the evidence of the divine revelation, just so much science and so much history that no one at the time knew about, and even today, for non-Muslims, for the Kafirs, many don't. It's said in the Quran, it's not the eyes that are blind, but the heart. Well, maybe it wasn't eyes, I might be confusing it, but it is the heart that's blind. It's a lack of emotion. It's a lack of curiosity. It's a lack of love inside of you. It's a lack of passion. It's a lack of a drive. It's a lack of motivation. It's a lack of feeling. It's called being an emotionless stone. Not seeing what's in front of you, how it's all Allah. Not seeing that the Prophet Muhammad was telling the obvious truth and nothing except the truth. And that every word, every letter of the Quran is meant to be. And so he was so shaken up and he didn't want to preach a message that was going to get him hurt by so many evil people. And every single time he would receive a revelation, at least in the early days, who knows if he changed his mind later, but we know from the early days when he would receive revelations, he feels that he would say it would hurt every revelation he received. It would hurt so much because it's just all this information thrust upon him. The whole world literally centered around him in this moment as the final prophet of all the prophets. And it all just made sense, but he never denied the truth. Not for 1 second. Yes, prophethood it was the burden of all burdens, and it was emotionally painful, and it was difficult, and it was hard to just wrap your head around the fact that this is happening to you. Of all the people in the world, Allah chose you. Literally, the chosen one. You know, not like in those like kung fu movies or those, you know, those action films. Like this guy was actually the chosen one. It's crazy to think about, but it's but it's crazier to deny it. It's literally the only explanation. And I never wanted to be blind, and neither did Muhammad, and neither was Muhammad. I was blinder than him, obviously. I denied the truth. But at least in my case, compared to other human beings out there today and throughout history, I always understood that the truth was external to me. Like, I couldn't determine what was true. My beliefs were supposed to conform to the truth, not the truth to my beliefs. That's why I changed my ideology like dozens of times. In fact, still today I am, and even in terms of my interpretation of certain Islamic rulings, or this being a reality of these hadiths, or like what is legitimate, we're always trying to figure out what's true, but we're doing so in accordance with Allah. We know that the truth is that whether we're comfortable with it or not, it's the truth, and that is what we should find comfort in, that it's true, and that the world is marked by good, the universe is marked by good and happiness and love, and the truth and morality, and not evil. That it's not some evil creator who governs things, but one who is perfect. Absolute perfection. And the thing is, because I recognize that, yes, obviously, I don't get to determine what is the truth. I changed my beliefs, my political beliefs, so many times. But every time I did, I felt the need to show it off. I felt the need to make videos on it. I felt the need to argue with depraved a-holes online. To argue with the lowest of the low. And every time I received no intellectual response, I kept going. And in fact, I targeted those specifically who weren't intellectuals, who didn't know what they were talking about, who didn't know anything. Whether this was about politics or, not too long ago, about Islam. Why did I go on social media or all these sites and look at the most disgusting thing ever said about Islam and about Muslims and about the ultimate truth by those who deny the truth, and then expect an intellectual reply when I gave them an intellectual reply? Why would someone who's so far gone possibly produce a decent comeback? It's not just that there's something wrong with them. Obviously, there's something very much wrong with them. Holy heck. But I mean, there was something wrong with me. What was I expecting? What was I doing? Why was I wasting my time? I could have been worshiping Allah. I could have been praying. I could have been learning more about Islam, about my own faith. I could be reading the Quran. I could be reading the Hadiths. I could be doing something. Reading books by Muslims and their interpretation of things and their rulings on and Islamic history, and knowing. I could have been doing all that stuff, loving the truth, as opposed to being obsessed with those who don't love anything, especially not the truth. What I did was haram anyway. The Quran says, do not talk to the non-believers, do not reach out to them in this manner for some debate, especially not in this context, right? Amongst the worst faith actors in the world. Only remind them, like the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians, that their religion only exists because of Allah. It only exists because they copied the Islamic scriptures, because they stole from Islamic mythology, because they stole the theology, they stole from Islam. And that's how these awful counterfeit doctrines even emerged. So I was going against Allah's own word, not because I disagreed with it. I could never disagree with Allah. I'm not the fool of all fools, dude. But because I just had no restraint I just gave in to temptation. I gave in to Shaivan. I gave in to the worst version of myself. And for some reason, on the internet, I presented the worst version of myself. For so long, I presented this angry, bitter, and cruel version. Yes, sure, there's intelligence sprinkled here and there, and sure, I may have been more intellectual than the average person you can find just making any kind of content on similar issues or whatever. Sure, I mean, I cared about the truth. I believed I was chasing it. I didn't believe it came from me, but I had to adhere to it. And yet, I wasn't a Muslim for the vast majority of my life. Not until a few years ago. But why? When it was the most obvious of all truths. If I didn't believe that there was divine revelation, then how did this information even come about? Why did the Quran exist? Why was it recited by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and Allah's blessings be upon him? Even I knew he wasn't lying. Even I knew he believed what he said. So why didn't I answer the question? I guess I just thought about all these other religions and how they're so fake. Christianity, Judaism, Zoroaster. Oh, that's going to make me want to vomit in my mouth. I can't even finish it. Jainism and Buddhism and Taoism and nonsense. It's just like New Age belief and paganism. This is absurd, but I never looked until so much later at the scientific faith. But why? I knew it was cool. I knew Islam made more sense than this other stuff. For years before that. I grew out of my initial Islamophobia. Like, even as a teenager, I realized how gross it was. I realized how shameful my behavior was. I realized how forward I was. But then I never sought it out. I never, but there's no excuse for it. There is truly no excuse. And that goes for everyone. For every single person, there is no excuse for this. And, now I look at this and like, this is my legacy. This is what people know me for. Oh my gosh. What have I done? This entire time I could have been doing something Islamically. I could have been doing something pro-Islam. I could have been doing the best thing anybody can do for Allah. The most respectful thing. I could have been writing Islamic essays or making videos on Islam. Not that I intend to make videos on Islam. I've had I'm not going to say trauma, but something adjacent to trauma from making these ideological videos for so long. It's a terrifying thing to think of. But yeah, I mean, I went after the lowest of the low, no matter what ideology I was. I never tried to look at what the intellectuals were saying. I never investigated enough. I never did enough. I never was that person that I should have been. Why? And I'm so ashamed of myself because I know that no one else is ashamed of them still not recognizing the truth. So that makes me better than all of them, but like, that's a low bar. I, of all people, am supposed to be past this, above this. But I wasn't. For so long, I wasn't. For so long, I was ignorant, and I just, I don't even know. I don't know how to articulate it. Sometimes only Allah has these words, has the words for such things, is able to phrase things so beautifully and perfectly. I'm nothing compared to him. I'm nothing compared to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and Allah's blessings be upon him. Not even 1/1,000,000th of him in terms of quality. He's over 1,000,000 times better than me. He's more than that. I'm nothing. I'm nothing compared to any of the Muslim prophets, peace and Allah's blessings be upon them. So what am I? Well, even though I messed up, and I know I've messed up, and I've messed up so much, and I've argued with so many mentally ill people, and I realize now, yeah, sure, I need to stop doing this. I had an addiction. I still do to an extent. I'm still an addict, but, recovering. To argue with people, to go after the lowest of the worst of the worst, the most evil, heartless, and greasy individuals. This is part of the evil within me that I'm trying to purge because I got addicted to it. I didn't start life like this. No one is born with original sin or any nonsense like that. We begin beautiful. We begin pure. And then that purity is just beaten out of us, partly by society, partly by our own temptations and giving in and not having enough of a will, not showing restraint, not having restraint, not doing what's right. And I want to do what's right. I want to follow Islam. I do. I have been for years. And I want to do it better now. Even better. Although, no matter what version, no matter what, not version, but degree you do it, degree right you do it. The fact that you're still following Islam, the fact that you still believe in the truth, that you are a Muslim, that's all that Allah asks. It would be good to be the best Muslim in the world, sure, but that is the bare minimum. And if you fulfill the bare minimum, then you've fulfilled the purpose of life. You've completed the challenge. You've solved the puzzle. The riddle of history is solved. It's not, materialism, or let alone historical materialism, where it's not the conditions and the changing of the conditions of the laborers or the economy or just like, the Trump administration or as awful as the administration is. But no, it's not these things. None of these politics are even a fraction of importance compared to Allah and Allah's will and the destiny He has us follow. We have to follow. We can ignore it, sure. He gives us that ability, and we will receive the ultimate consequences, the most horrific consequences if we do. For those who are too blind, not by sight, not by hearing, but by the heart. Their hearts are just empty, cold, and withering away. And so there's so much mental illness. I really don't want to hop on about it too much, but there's so much eccentric and demonic behavior you to see in real life and online. People who are cruel and not even human, really, like barely human, sucked away of all humanity by their own volition. Those who are just demons, those who spread hate as opposed to love, who go against the word of Allah in every aspect of their life and their living. Nothing except a concentration of cancer cells that presents itself as a human being, somehow human, barely even that, poorly disguised, I might add. And just how I was arguing with these people. What response did I expect? But there's no lowness. There's no telling the difference when it comes to Islamophobia or a variety of other ideologies, even terrible beliefs, between parody and sincerity. There's no difference. Even parodies, a lot of the time, go softer than the real thing. The expression beyond parody is now more relevant than ever before. It applies to so much wickedness, to the speech of so many people, to the sentiments they express, it's sometimes hard to even believe the level of evil that exists in the world. The level of racism, white supremacy, Zionism, people cheering the bombing and murder and racial holocaust of the indigenous Arab Palestinians, of all Palestinian people, and wanting to wipe the people of the Gaza Strip out and replace them with white Israelis, and the people that don't want immigrants in their country, and the Make America Great Again people, and the cultists, and the creeps, and the vaccine deniers, and just these ghouls, whether they're Christians or they're atheists or whatever they are, who say this stuff, who behave this way, who want people of color to die and not receive health care, and want to revoke the 14th Amendment so that even legal citizens are no longer legal because they're not white. And that's not even the worst things ever. I can't even bring myself to say the worst things I've ever seen. Recently, in fact, on this very episode, I can't even say it. I can't even bring myself to say it because it's that heartbreaking. And I don't want to burst into tears. But I guess it's because I have a heart and they don't. I'm not perfect. And Allah knows that. No one is perfect except Allah. Even the angels, even Allah's guardians, even those who work for Allah, they're not perfect. And truly, Allah is the one who guards them, who protects them, who sustains them, not the other way around. Allah can make everything else in existence disappear, and He would still remain. But if Allah disappeared, which is impossible, obviously, and he already knows it's not going to happen because he's seen all of existence, which is never ending. But anyway, then nothing would exist. If Allah never came into existence, and he never came into it, but he always existed. If Allah doesn't exist, then nothing exists. But I can see that something does exist. I'm seeing it right now. Everything I'm seeing, everything I've ever seen in my life. So Allah exists. I don't even know what to make of this. I have so many different days. I have days where I'm feeling great, days where I'm feeling awful, days where it's just a bit of this and a bit of that, and I can't really decide, and days that are like happy but somewhat melancholic, like today. Like nothing bad happened. Well, nothing in my real life, sure. I didn't engage with anyone on the internet. Well, I mean, I guess I replied to a comment on my channel, but yeah, it was fine. But yeah, but somehow I just get into these thoughts and I start thinking. And I start thinking deep because I care about the truth, unlike so many others. I care. And I know that there's something beyond me, bigger than me, so much bigger. And I care so much, and I start thinking about things and how these past 10 years, from the ages of 15 to 25, I'm 25 now, can you believe that, right? Jeez, I'm ancient. This is how I've decided to spend my life, not primarily making videos, obviously, not even as a big thing. Entire months go by, maybe only a few hours out of any month I might spend doing anything like that. But I've been so consumed with all this stuff on the internet that I've forgotten that this is how it's always been. Go back 1,000 years and people were saying the same thing about the same exact things, just as wild and far gone about Islam as they are now. It's never changed. The evil and the stupidity and the ignorance has never changed one bit. And it won't change for another 1,000 years. Unless the day of resurrection happens before that, but we'll never know when that's going to happen. It will happen, of course. But, well, it'll happen with there'll be a few signs. I mean, there already have been all the signs that we know have completed. There's more to come. There's so much more to happen, but, well, some Muslims might definitely get a good idea of it. I don't doubt it, and that's besides the point. The point is, I don't know now when it's going to happen. But if it doesn't happen for another 1,000 years, then yes, in 1,000 years, he will be saying the same absurd and evil things. And you will never be able to tell the difference between what they actually believe versus just a parody, a joke. Because even comedians and random individuals satirizing the things said about Islam and Muslims it doesn't sound nearly as depraved as the actual thing. You can't even make this up anymore. The discrimination that Muslims face. And the hostility people have to those who simply believe in the Lord and the Lord's wishes and the whole truth and the explanation for everything. Okay. I don't want to stick around to continue what I never should have been doing in the first place. I could say I messed up my life so much it's irreversible now. I can only pray to Allah, repent, ask for forgiveness, and then just hope, well, okay, I did my part, and then I'll get Jannah, and I'll live in Jannah forever. And sure, it's going to happen. But why did Allah give me this life? Just to waste it? I mean, sure, even if I do complete the bare minimum, and I've converted to Islam, even if I pray away everything, and we should all pray away our sins. That's the bare minimum, but why only do the bare minimum? Why not go beyond and above? Why not do something extra nice for Allah? To show your gratitude for everything He's given you, every single good thing that's ever happened to you, ever, and will happen to you forever, for those who are Muslims. That's the real destiny of humanity. He gave us this life not to waste it. I can't reasonably, logically say, okay, well, you've done so many terrible things. You've made so many mistakes. You've wasted so much of your time. You weren't the kind of person you should have always been. So just give up. Just accept that you're mediocre or whatever, that you've done the bare minimum. I don't accept that. because that's not what Allah wants. And isn't the whole point about recognizing that someone else's plan for you is better than anything you could ever imagine? Not any person, not any material being, not any construction of matter, but the Lord, the creator and the designer, and the imagination of all things. The imagination that imagined all of it. So I know Allah's plan is better than anything I could ever come up with, very glaringly, very obviously, to no one's surprise there. Allah is so beautiful in everything that He does. And so I know that my destiny is to do the right thing. Don't say to yourself, your life is over. Because there's still time. There's still time to turn things around. And you know what? I actually have turned things around to quite a big degree. The first thing is turning it around to the highest degree, which is recognizing Islam as the truth, accepting it. You know, even before I did that, I was turning some things around. I was being less active online. I was recognizing there was a problem. I was identifying it. I was being more normal. I was being more grounded. I wasn't obsessed with things to such a degree. I had balance in my life. I had interests. I had hobbies. I had media I liked. I had ideas I liked. I had more emotion, as opposed to being robotic when I first began making videos on the internet and getting into horrible political ideologies and supporting disgusting things and just. But then when I converted and I realized this is the real destiny, things began getting better at an increasing pace, way faster. Things began quicker. It accelerated. It started making sense. It started more and more sense, and I started behaving better. But I still got a long way to go, as we all do. And of course, Allah knows we'll never be perfect, and maybe we'll never even be as good as the image we have of ourselves being one day. We will never know this. Only Allah knows the future, just as He knows the past and the present and every single thing we don't know and we can't perceive. Only He can. I can still do the right thing. I can still move in the right direction and get better. If I've already been getting better, I can continue. So I've never reached sobriety, and it's quite possible I never will, and I can accept that. I've accepted that some time now. Because as long as you have these temptations and these urges, you'll always be an addict. Think of it, right? Think of something really haram like alcohol. There are people, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, who are addicted to this awful, immoral substance. You know? And I'm no exception. Not that I'm that addicted, but I shouldn't drink a single beer, ever. Right? But I won't lie, I've given in, and I'll probably give in again. I don't doubt it. But I'm going to tell you this. People who go to AA meetings and they sit around in a circle and then they talk about their problems and just trying to quit this awful addiction, right? How it's destroying them, it's destroying their families, their marriage, it's destroying their relationships with everyone, the time they spend with their friends, it's destroying their ability to focus. And it's destroying their liver too. And it's destroying the relationship with Allah, the worst of all offenses. They know that just because they're not drinking in the moment, because of course they're not, they're at an AA meeting, that doesn't mean they're still not addicted. It doesn't mean that they've quit. They're going to go home and chug a few more beers. And if not that day, then the next day. And if not the next day, then the day after. And if not that day, then in a few weeks, or if they're lucky, in a few months. But almost definitely not never. Or else why are they at that meeting to begin with? That's the thing. Because you've had the temptation and it's swelled inside of you and it's built inside of you and subsisted for so long, it's likely you'll always be an addict. No person is usually cured fully, like 100%. Someone doesn't just say, okay, I've quit alcohol now, done, cold turkey. Never touch a beer again. That's almost never how it works. If only it did, right? But it tends not to. And so with me, I'll always have this addiction to this urge to just want to argue with the worst, most subhuman individuals online and to give in to Shavon's awful desires. And I've been doing it less lately, thank gosh. But it got so bad, I wanted to kill so many people. I wanted to do so many violent acts of torture and mutilation and chopping them into pieces and knocking their heads out with like a brick and their brains splattered all over the floor. I fantasized about it. I fantasized about it today. There you go. I'll admit, I'm not sober because of all this rage built up inside of me and all these images of how I want the world to be and how I see people that are holding us back constantly. That's true, sure. But this is no different than 1400 years ago when people were just as evil toward the will of Allah and those who believed in it. It's not changed one bit. These people have not evolved. The Islamophobes have not evolved. People of racists have not evolved. People who are gross toward racial minorities and immigrants and it's never changed. And it's not going to change. It's probably not going to change for another 1,000 years, most likely. It's probably still going to be the same. People are going to be saying the same arguments. It's going to be more horrifying because it's all going to be documented online on social media and on YouTube. Holy heck. You're looking at thousands of year-old, YouTube videos. You're like, oh, what was the world like 1,000 years ago? Well, I have perfect evidence of it, which is horrifying. I mean, we're living through history now. Historians are going to be talking about it. Who knows if historians are going to be talking about this video, this very audio. Wow, I can't picture that. I guess I'll be able to watch it in Jannah. That'd be pretty cool. Who knows if that'll happen. Well, anyway, I know that Jannah is a fact, and, I'm going to it, and all Muslims are. Yeah, but I don't know if this is going to be preserved in history. I don't know. But I let everything, all the fate, I let all my fate and everything in the hands of Allah only. Only in Allah's control of everything, and just, He knows best. And so, it's not too late to turn yourself around. It's not too late to be better. It's not too... There is 1,000 things I could say here. I never reached sobriety. I have violent thoughts about, when I see people do evil things and say evil things, I have violent thoughts and I want to do horrible things to them and torture them and kill them. And that's not what Allah wants me to do, obviously. I know if it's not right. I know Allah knows best. This is the thing. If I didn't accept Allah, I could never properly formulate an argument. Even now, I couldn't formulate an argument as to why I shouldn't kill these people. I shouldn't torture them extensively before I kill them. I'm not going to do that. I wasn't going to do it anyway. But I know that Allah says this is haram, this is extremely haram. And even the worst person in the world can convert, can recognize the truth, even if it's in their final days on earth. Not just, opportunistically converting, because Allah does not allow that. He does not save you for that sake. But truly believing. And then when they convert and they recognize the truth and that they were wrong the whole time, no matter the evil they did, Allah will still send them to Jannah. As He should. And that's the thing, so imagine how ridiculous it would be if I said, don't take people's lives. Wow. What a shock. Wow. What education I'm giving you. But here's the thing, you can turn yourself around, dude. You can get better. And you don't reach sobriety overnight. You might never reach sobriety. But you do get better. And Allah knows best.
Hey everyone, this is New109 here. Assalamu alaikum. And I just wanted to add a little onto what I said. The audio I recorded that yesterday. I think it was yesterday, it could be the day before, I don't remember. Probably yesterday. And when I did it, I was really out of it. I was really out of it. I was in the motions, and I was going through some stuff. And looking back at it, for that to be like the final message, for those who watch my videos and for those who end up listening to this video, I think that'd be kind of depressing, right? It's kind of a depressing note to add things on. And I'm not for that. I'm not in favor of going out that way. So I want to address some things. So the first thing I wanted to address was the fact that I talked about like having these fantasies about killing people and murdering people and that sort of thing. And I didn't really address that much. I just kind of mentioned it and glossed over it. But I guess I should detail it a bit. So everyone has like mental tics and mental problems and psychological issues, and there are areas in their life where they're very strong mentally, and also some areas where they're pretty weak, right? And I'm no exception. And one of those areas I give into is I give into anger a lot of the time. I give into anger, and it causes me to get angry at people and to dislike people and not see people and not spend time with people and not want to be around people and just want to be around myself. I guess that's what I turn my life into, basically. Everything, just the only people I'll reach out to the most disgusting people on the internet to argue with them. But I won't take the help of those who actually exist in my real life. How interesting is that? Well, I'm not the only one, but it's a problem nonetheless. But I give in to anger, is what I'm saying. And relatively recently, considering the grand scheme of my life, right, I got into watching gore videos, right? And I mean, like real gore, of course. Stuff that's really accessible, stuff that's really easy to find on the internet. And by all means, every measure, these videos are haram to film, obviously, and haram to watch. Even just to view them, to actively go out there and click on these videos and watch it. Like, it's a difference between if something gory just happens to come onto your screen versus intentionally watching real people die in the most violent, horrific ways and seeing them tortured before they die. And I'm personally a big fan of watching them being tortured before they die. Actually, the torture is the more interesting part, to see them alive and suffering and unhappy and miserable and experiencing the highest degree of agony and dismay. And I watched these videos, and I'm not cured, obviously. I mentioned that before. I'm not cured of anything. I still have these habits. I know I'm going to go back to these sites, and I'm going to make the same mistake all over again. I don't doubt it. I would be lying if I said I didn't, right? Okay. So I know, I absolutely know I'm going to go back to that, back to the sin. These videos and these sites, they're haram. They shouldn't participate. And even from a non-theological perspective, even if you're not a Muslim, well, actually, I don't really have any argument there. I mean, I can't really formulate why these are immoral. These are immoral to watch outside of Allah, so. But then again, that's kind of why you need Allah, because nothing is really objectively explained about him, or at least not a lot of things. Obviously, some things would still be immoral without him, that we just use reason, but then again, nothing would exist without him. There'd be no acts, there'd be no world, there'd be no formation, no nothing. There'd be no visuals. So, but yeah, these videos, like I watched thousands, or at least hundreds, but probably thousands actually. So many. I watched so many of these videos, and an excessive amount, and I was drawn to them because ever since I was a kid, the youngest kid, I always had like violent fantasies. I always fantasized about killing people, real life people, but fictional people sometimes, but people in my real life, people I've met and people I've known about, right? And I would have these fantasies where I'm killing them and I'm getting enjoyment out of it, right? But this is not sickness of itself, because pretty much everyone feels this way to some degree, and that'd be a lie. You'd be lying if you said you didn't feel that way occasionally. Of course. You know how many people want to torture Elon Musk to death? You know how many people? Pretty much everyone on Blue Sky, it appears to be. Yeah, so many people want to do horrific things to him and his family. And perhaps it's going too far, but then again, who am I to speak? I don't know. But what I will say is, obviously, murder is wrong. Shockingly. It's evil. We have to complete our whole life. Every single second of it, whether it's a good life or a bad life. Because Allah is the judge of everything. He is who judges us, not others. He is who determines that, at the end, when one has died, whether they lived a decent life or not, whether that was a life worth spent, whether they've accepted Islam or not is the determining factor, not this other stuff. So I have no right to take someone's life. I've never taken someone's life. I never killed someone. I think I would remember if I did. But, I've been angry, and I've been very angry, and I've done things I'm not proud of, like, I don't want to say torturing animals, but I mean, certainly killing them in violent ways, and I shouldn't have done that. Like, I shouldn't, how do you vent your frustration, right? How do you vent? It wasn't someone's pets or anything, it was just, animals you find in the wild. And this stuff was never okay. It was never okay for me to do, because it was obviously animal cruelty. And I never used the corpses for anything. right? Which is haram. It's a waste, right? It's just obviously a waste. It should have gone to an animal, or at least a hunter or something, right? It wasn't right for me to do. But I was obviously projecting what I wanted to do to people, what I wanted to do to human beings when I was, beating them to death. And, it's a messed up image, but we all have it to some degree. That's why it's so weird that it's hard to, talk about. It's stigmatized, having these, violent and torturous fantasies, because most people have them, the vast majority. Me, though, I had them worse than the average person, and it got to such a point where, because I was engaging on the internet with people I hated, and I was engaging with all this political stuff, and I was so consumed with one ideology, which I would abandon only for another terrible ideology, and then I would just keep going, and I would never get out of it. I thought it was a matter of which ideology was best, as opposed to realizing that you're not supposed to hold onto these ideologies or take them too seriously. The only thing you need is Islam. You don't need any of this other stuff. But anyway, look, the point is I did some stuff I'm not proud of as a person. And obviously these are just animals. These aren't human beings. I get it. It's not that bad. But, it's it's still not good, is it? It's obviously not good. And the problem though is, even if I moved on to, obviously I never would, but I contemplated it. I contemplated it. I did. And I wanted to do it, and I considered doing it. And I remember a few years ago, I was mapping out some ideas for how to get away with it legally, or how to. Again, this is obviously psychopath stuff, and for what it's worth, obviously I'm not cured of fantasies, but I am cured of any intention. Absolutely, 100%, no intention, would never do this. And I understand how stupid it is. I understand how far gone it is. I understand how ridiculous it is. Right? I mean, you're gonna. This is actually a perfect example of what I was talking about. How I was so obsessed, and people are so obsessed all the time with things which don't matter, which have no real impact, that you throw your whole life away, or at least the possibility of being caught, just to get some cheap thrill out of torturing another person. That's sick. That's gross. Obviously. It's not that I don't have empathy. I do have empathy. I have sympathy. I have empathy. I'm a normal... I'm the most normal guy you'll find out of any of these political commentator dudes. I'm definitely the most normal in every sense, really. As disturbing as it is, considering that everyone else is less normal than me then. But, yeah, it's no, I mean, I thought I was destined to do a lot of things. And I thought that would cure my self-confidence issues. If I could take someone and maybe their entire family and kill their kids in front of them and stomp their pets to death and slowly torture them and slowly torture their family. Don't kill them in one swoop. I thought to myself that something good would happen in the world. I generally thought that. I thought that I would feel so confident, and I would feel so relieved, and I've done it. Now I can just go about things knowing no one knows about this except me. And I'm happy about it, and this is the kind of thing that you would regret so intensely. If I did it, I would regret it every day. Well, maybe not every day, but I would regret it sometimes at least. I would never look back at it and be like, that was a happy moment. But it wouldn't cure this urge within me, because that's the problem, right? You think killers just kill one person or a few people in one round. No. Why else do you think serial killers exist? Because they just want more. They're never satisfied. It's like drinking one beer. You just want more, And so that was the thing with all haram things, really. All evil and depraved and sickly things. And it wouldn't be enough for me. Because even when I watch gore videos, it's never enough. That's what I keep saying. I'm bored of 99% of this stuff. Only a few videos on gore sites have ever truly captivated me. Truly. Actually fix some kind of fulfilled some urge in me. And it was always the most horrific and most violent, seeing a guy being skinned alive with a machete, the whole thing, all his torso and his face completely skinned off, and him left alive so he can be tortured, and it's or someone's head being crushed with a hammer, the whole thing, and the brains coming out. It's just it has to be, but even then, I'm it's not long enough. It's not violent enough. There's not enough suffering. You have to kill their kids in front of them. But do it slowly, so they don't know exactly when they're going to die or when they're dead. Just, it's a gradual thing so they can slowly lose hope and fall into despair. That's horrific, right? Who talks that way? Who hopes for that kind of thing? That's not healthy. That's not what Allah wants. That's not what any sane person should ever aspire to, or let alone be, let alone, enjoy this stuff. But then to actually create it, like the sick monsters who upload these videos, who record these videos of them killing people. Like, jeez, dude. That's the thing. I could have thrown away my whole life. Just, even if, I obviously would have been caught, right? I mean, I don't know how many murders are cleared, but, I would have been smart about it, but there's no such thing as being truly smart about a dumb thing, right? Smart for doing a dumb thing, I guess. But I never did that. I never attempted murder. I just contemplated some stuff, the same way you contemplate a lot of things. I contemplate everything. It's called philosophy, obviously. But I should never have even considered that. Just as I should have never considered all these ideologies and being involved in all this like political stuff online as I did. It's what ruined me. It's what ruined my life. It's what took a chunk of my life away. Just saying that out loud is painful, isn't it? It's so painful. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. Just reflecting on it, just how much love I could have been putting into this world, how many things I could have been doing, artistic projects, media, and loving and worshiping Allah, especially just knowing more and more about the will of Allah, reading more Islamic literature and getting more in touch with the truth and the history and the evidence and everything and the prophets, peace and Allah's blessings be upon them. Just everything, but I messed it all up, didn't I? And I guess there's no truly coming back from it. Like, it's always going to be a scar. It's always going to be on me. It's going to be a mark because there was no brief period in my life. Definitely not. But it's not my whole life. And even when it was happening, it wasn't all that I was. It concerned me too much, and it made me think and want to do horrible things, and it tore me apart. But, these horrible violent fantasies of, it's like these disgusting things. I have a problem. I'm still addicted because even though I don't consider actually doing it, I fantasize about it. Sometimes multiple times a day, often, really. Fantasizing about, like, the most, like, awful, horrific stuff happening to people, and then being tortured in the most severe way. It's not for me to do. That's Allah who determines what someone gets in Jahannam, It's not for me to say. It's not for me to do. It's not for me to even contemplate. And it never should have been. I never should have been this person where I'm so full of hate. Because what do you do when you're hungry, right? If you have no food, the answer is not to look at images of food you want to eat on Google Images. It's just going to make you, like, more hungry, right? If you're horny, then looking at pornography but not being able to jack off it does the opposite of what you want, right? It makes you hornier, So I've heard anyway. I imagine that's how it works. So it's the same with everything. Like, if you are such a hateful person, and I have hated me, but I was worse in the past. But I'm trying to recover, or trying to be less prone to it, less hateful, right? Less inflicted with this suffering. The answer is not to watch gore videos. The answer is not to fantasize about killing. The answer is to get your mind out of this. Stop watching dark media. Watch some happy media. Stop going on social media. Or just limit your time on it. Vastly limit, right? Only check it a few days every blue moon or whatever. Just, don't look at all this horrific stuff that's causing you to spiral into this spear of hate and dread. Just don't do it. But anyway, I wanted to make this little additional audio because I didn't want to end things on like a miserable, sad note and everything. And I know I record that stuff when I was like feeling really, I'm always feeling emotional, but don't we all? We're always feeling some emotion, so. But yeah. Well, what do I have to say? What do I have to say? I will say, do I hate my audience? Do I hate the people that watch my videos? Mostly, yeah. Sadly, my videos attract a lot of mentally ill and gross people and racists, and I don't like any of these guys. They're horrible. There's the occasional person who might watch my channel who might be just a decent person who just wants to learn about philosophy and learn about what I said, and sure, they might be a reasonable person. I don't know. I don't know them. There was this comment received a few months ago, I think, or maybe it was like a year. I don't know. Time flies, man. Saying this person saying, "I can't believe you hate your audience so much. I think your videos are really deep and intelligent." That's what they said. It's like, okay, well, that's nice. I don't really think my videos were ever that good. They certainly weren't bad. They were better than like most videos on the subject. But then again, most videos on the subject weren't really on the subject at all. They weren't on anything. They weren't very good at all. But so I'm saying it's a pretty low bar to compare. Maybe my videos just look really good because it's in a sea of nonsense, all the other stuff. But I never really talked like this before. I never really being transparent right now. Who I am, what I want to do, how I don't want to live this life, how I don't want to be known for this. Okay, I'm gonna make one final comparison. There might be some who are familiar with this movie by the name of I Saw the TV Glow. And I'm a cisgender man. That's like a trans allegory themed film. It's a pretty good film. It's very sad. It's about this woman who lives in the midnight realm, which is like our world. But really, she's a woman whose real identity and real existence began in this realm called the Pink Opaque. And there's a show called the Pink Opaque. It's hard to explain without context. Maybe you should watch it. But the idea is it's about her figuring out who she really is and how she's being taken away from reality, from her actual, existence, and forced to live a life that's not her and that's not representative of what she is and what she cares about. And it's just like, at the end, she like opens up her like body with her torso with like a switchblade, or was it a box cutter? Yes, a box cutter. And she sees like the TV glow. She sees like the static inside of her, knowing that she belonged to a different realm, and that was really her. And it's just like it's like this whole time you were destined. A person was destined for one thing, and that's what their life was. And they'll never really be out, like in this realm. I don't live in the fantasy realm I wish I lived in. Wouldn't it be great to live in the fantasy realm? Of course. Well, one day I will. It's called Janner, actually. So that's gonna be cool. But yes, until then, yes, I am trapped in this mortal, material appearing universe that's dark and awful and full of awfulness and awful people and just depravity and just immorality and godlessness and just everything that's wrong. And there are some who've came to Allah and who've recognized the truth, and but but the thing is that focus on yourself, focus on your own life, focus on what you can do for yourself. I'm not cured. I might never be cured. I might never reach sobriety, but I can definitely get better, and I definitely have gone better, and I'm definitely going to continue that trend. You don't go cold turkey overnight. You don't just detach this part of you that you become, but you can certainly get better. And you can certainly be in touch with your emotions and in touch with who you are as a person, and you can grow and you can be better. And I know you can. And so, everyone, I leave you with that. That is the final sentiment. Farewell, and for those who weren't a-holes, for those who were decent, thanks for watching.
Everything makes sense.
Are these people serious?
They are! And only to be too very...
I can't. I can't.